So I'm Gillian Mittelstaedt. I'm the director of the Tribal Healthy Homes Network, as well as the Partnership for Air Matters. If you've seen that phrase or heard us reference it, it's a nonprofit organization that runs the Toolkit program. As many of you may know who are grant recipients, you can't actually process orders or purchase equipment routinely as a grantee. So the Partnership for Air Matters is our house for that. What I'm going to talk about today is building opportunities for empowerment and how social marketing is one way that we can address and help build empowerment around safe and healthy housing. Tools and toolkits are one way we can do that, which is the topic. I do want to just scroll, there we go. I want to thank the Tulalip tribes really quickly too. Their leadership, their staff, the people we work with. We pilot and collaborate with them on all our programs, and they are also our pass-through for Tribal Healthy Homes Network. These are grandchildren of longtime colleagues of mine, and I just want to share that and thank them for their support. And I'm going to also say that at the end of every webinar, meaning all three, we're going to raffle off toolkits. So hang on till the end. We'll randomly choose a number and somebody will be sent a complete toolkit. If you can complete all three, we're also going to send you a certificate of completion. If you have scheduling conflicts with one of the remaining, you can also just watch the video recorded, which is recording now, and then we'll send you the certificate. All right, I'm going to jump into my slides, and I'm going to start actually with a brief story. And probably a little bit of a relatable story. So if you're having sleep issues, what do you normally do? You might read an online article. You might talk to your doctor, your best friend, an auntie, a coworker who also looks tired. You might search Amazon for natural sleep aids. You might spend too much money on a fancy new pillow that ironically appeared as an ad on your social media feed after you read that online sleep article. You might try opening or closing windows, bedding. You might kick your partner, dog, or kids out of the room, or maybe all three. But chances are you do as many of these as possible until something works. And if I could see you all, I'm guessing that there's sort of that look like, oh yeah, we've all been there, right? So the question or the challenge is that it probably wasn't one piece of information that led you to finding the right solution and there was trial and error and exploration, right? And what research tells us is that if you did make a behavior change, it was likely that you went through a process called discovery learning. So discovery learning, the way they describe it, is that it's active participation in the learning process rather than passively receiving knowledge. It also requires people to ask questions and expand their thinking and to develop their own tentative answers. And finally, it tends to produce stronger learning outcomes because we build a sense of accomplishment in the process when we find our own solutions. So discovery learning and behavior change can take place through social marketing, which is what I'm going to talk about now for just a few slides. And social marketing specifically, there's multiple definitions, but one is that it's a method for influencing behaviors that improve public health, prevent injuries, and protect the environment. But you have to step back for a minute and say, what is the behavior change process that we're even trying to approach? So I'll start here, for example, if education and awareness is your aim, you're right here at these are sort of classic stages of behavior change, right? You're sending to your community information that helps them move from this pre-contemplation stage where they're unaware to a contemplation stage where they're aware of the problem. Social marketing is really intended to ideally hit the next steps where you're trying to induce action, and the focus is on preparation, action, and of course then maintenance to sustain those behaviors. However, we have to step back first because behavior change first requires that we believe in something. We have to believe that a risk actually exists, and I think COVID has given us a very clear indication that people have extremely varied responses to technical information or to scientific information from a government body. So the risk has to be believed. People have to believe that the risk actually applies to them, that they're not immune, and that they have the power to protect themselves from that risk. So those are precursors to any of us making change. The challenge in the field that we're in indoor air and healthy homes is that how do you communicate risk if the risks are often, though not always, invisible, odorless, and tasteless? The other challenge is, as I click on this and you see this graphic, is everything from VOCs, formaldehydes, molds, mycotoxins, asbestos, radon, phthalates, they don't necessarily have a short-term manifestation. It could be that you have an asthma episode or allergenic response. It could also be that it takes 15 to 20 years for the DNA mutation and for something to show up in learning disabilities or birth defects or cancer. So it's really, we have a real challenge. Tools, I discovered with many talented colleagues and working in the Tulalip community for many years, are one way we've discovered that we can try to make that risk real. Because through tools and toolkits, we're not only educating, but we're trying to engage and empower, and we're really doing what I talked about earlier, which is that discovery learning process, or we're hoping to do that. So what we piloted in 2014 in Alaska and at Tulalip, the toolkits, and some things we've learned in the 7 years since. And the whole purpose for this webinar series is to hear from all these innovations and success stories from tribes. But first of all, they're not a replacement for in-home assessment. The toolkits are great, but they don't, they're not a substitute for doing inspections and repairs when there's a significant hazard, something like radon or extensive mold. And they're not a holistic intervention, right? They need to be supplemented. If you're trying to achieve a multi-pronged intervention, you may also need a pharmacist involved with asthma medication treatment, for example. I've got about a minute and a half left, so I'm just going to click through here. What we have learned most importantly is that tools are really important when trust is a barrier to entering homes. And I'm sure depending on your community, that may or may not be an issue. It's certainly something we encountered. It's also useful when there is limited staff time and resources and you cannot personally reach every single resident in your community. And finally, the tools probably most powerfully are a way to actualize air quality. They make it real and they go to that axiom, which is if you can measure it, it exists. And that's in part what the genesis of the tools were about. Some of you may be familiar with it. If not, the list, the yellow graphics on your right indicate what is currently in the toolkit. At the bottom in the light green, I'm showing some things that we are exploring in the next year that are a higher cost. They're difficult in size. They're producing some animated videos, but they're elements that we found through our research could genuinely strengthen the toolkit. Over the next hour and then the next couple webinars, you'll hear these types of examples from tribes of things that they've done with their tools. This is a graphic showing many of the different tribes and organizations that have used the tools in a variety of ways. This graphic in particular then shows by EPA region, and I think we're at close to 1,800 tools have been distributed to households. I'll be sending out a handout with these examples as well later on for those of you in tribal or non-tribal organizations that want to look at the applications to your asthma program. These are some of the methods. So Erin, if you want to go ahead and end my broadcast and switch it over to the next speaker. Thank you.